If you're a beginner in Blender and want to get better, this is the exact video for you to practice and improve your 3D modeling skills. This session is designed for beginners and it's packed with essential techniques that will elevate your modeling skills. Throughout this tutorial you will learn how to use a range of essential modifiers, including mirror modifier for symmetrical modeling, screw modifier for creating intricate shapes, bevel modifier to soften edges. You will also explore the array modifier to duplicate elements efficiently, the subdivision modifier for achieving that smooth and polished look, and the solidify modifier to add thickness to our model. In addition to modifiers, we will dive deep into Blender's powerful edit mode tools. So you will master loop tools for creating precise circles, the knife tool for making exact cuts, and the spin tool for adding intricate details. And I will also guide you through adding loop cuts to refine your mesh, extruding to add depth and dimension, and insetting faces for detailed surfaces. You will also learn to use the shrink fatten tool for adjusting the volume of your geometry. So by the end of this tutorial you will have a striking CPU cooler that not only looks fantastic but also showcases the techniques you can apply to future projects. And if you find the tutorial too slow, you can manage the playback speed in the settings. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so when you open your Blender file, you will need to delete everything, so press A to select everything and X to delete it. Now I've gathered a few reference images and you can see this one has some small details we will be working on, and I think that's a nice thing to practice on, but I have also gathered a few additional CPU coolers here, so you can see them, and we will take some small details from them and implement into our main CPU coolers. So before starting modeling, you need to break your object into simple shapes, and most likely you can see a cubic shape here, so a cube here, a cube here, and a cube here. However, there is also a circle inside of this cube, so there is a bunch of ways that we can make a circle out of a cube, or vice versa, we can make a cube out of a circle. However, the reason why it wouldn't work in our case is because you can see on the image the corners are separated. So in this case it would be much more difficult to do them if we had a whole cube. So we can do it another way using mesh plane. So let's press Shift A on your keyboard, select Mesh and select Plane. After that let's tab into Edit mode, A to select everything, R, X, rotate 90 degrees. Let's press numpad 1 to go into the front view, and right now we are going to add some loop cuts. So you can add loop cuts by clicking the icon on the left side of your screen. You can see I'm doing that right now, so we can add some loop cuts. However, let's right click right now to cancel the action. So we can use a shortcut, Ctrl+R, and you can see we can add the same loop cuts we could add with icon. And right now if we scroll our mouse wheel up or down, we can increase or decrease the number of loop cuts. So now let's add a loop cut directly in the middle. We press Ctrl+R and left click and then right click to keep it in the middle. So now we should add a horizontal loop cut, Ctrl+R, left click and then right click to keep it in the middle. Now we should enter vertices selection mode. We can do that by pressing 1 on our keyboard or clicking this icon. Now let's select the following vertices. We also need to select the bottom vertices. So to do that, hold down the Shift key, click your left mouse button and drag over them as well. After that let's press X and delete the vertices. So now we have only one corner of our plane and we are going to duplicate it with a mirror modifier. So let's go to the modifiers tab, add modifier, generate, and let's select mirror modifier. Alongside x-axis, let's also enable the z-axis. So right now we have our whole plane, as you can see, but if we go into the edit mode, you can see that we can modify only that one corner. And if we decide to move this vertex, we can select it, press G on your keyboard, and we can move it around. As you can see, other corners, they mirror the behavior of our selected vertex. And this will save us a lot of time since we can only work on one corner and then duplicate them with mirror modifier. So mirror modifier mirrors things based on your origin point. If you move your origin point, the mirror results will be different. Alright, so let's continue. Let's add another loop cut with Ctrl R, left click, right click to keep it in the middle, and let's add another loop cut, like that. So right now you can find a knife tool on the left side of your screen. You can click that icon and choose the knife tool, and we can actually access knife tool with a shortcut, so let's press K on your keyboard and we can do the same thing. So now let's click on the edges, just like you see on the screen, and let's hit enter. These edges are most likely uneven, and that's alright, so we will work on that right now. So let's select the vertex right now and let's double tap G for edge slide. We can modify our geometry without actually breaking it. So again, let's just slide this vertex to the end as you can see on the screen, and then left click to keep it there. So now let's double tap G and let's set value of 0.2. Now let's do the same with the second vertex, so double tap G, slide it to the end, then double tap G one more time and set the value to 0.2. And now our edges are evenly distributed. And what we're going to do right now is let's select the corner vertex and then let's shift and right click on the middle vertex to select both of them. After that, when we have two vertices selected, let's click J on your keyboard to join these vertices together. This will provide us with the additional edges and we will actually need them in the future. And while holding shift, let's select both of these faces. And let's press P key on your keyboard and separate them by selection. And now if we tab out of the edit mode, you can see that we have two separate objects. So now let's hold the shift key and let's select both of our objects. After that, let's press tab into edit mode, press A to select everything, and we're going to extrude this thing. So let's press E and let's set Y axis to extrude. And let's extrude to somewhere like this. Right now let's head to viewport overlays and enable face orientation. Most likely you're going to see everything in red, and that usually happens when we extrude and our normals are flipped inside. So you can go to the edit mode, select everything with A and press Shift N to flip your normals outside. And if it happens to you in the future, just remember, red is bad, blue is good. Let's also flip the normals on our other object. And now let's disable the face orientations. Okay, so now we are going to work on our small details for this corner, and you can see these holes here, so I will show you how to do them right now. So first off, let's go to the Edit, Preferences, Get Extensions and search for Loop Tools. You will probably see the Install button next to it, so click it first and then we can work with that. Okay, so with our corners selected, let's go into the Edit mode. Let's click A to select everything. W, subdivide. You can see our mesh is subdivided and it has more faces. You can press Shift R to repeat the last action and subdivide it even more. Now let's hold Shift and select these faces in the middle. Or we can press 1 on our numpad to go into the front view, press Z and choose wireframe mode. After that you can press C and select everything like that. And now we are going to make this hole here. So with the faces selected, let's press W on your keyboard, go to Loop Tools and Circle. After that you can delete the faces, so just press X, F to delete the faces. Right now let's select everything with A, press N on your keyboard and set mean bevel weight to 0. And what we want to do right now is we want to connect these two edges. So let's press Alt and right click on both of these edges. To open your edge settings, press Ctrl E and after that choose Bridge Edge Loops. Now we should add modifiers, so let's press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Then go to Add Modifier, Generate, Bevel, and let's drag bevel above the subdivision surface modifier. We can also change the number of segments to 3. Let's set limit method to weight. Let's press / on your keyboard to go into the local view and see only one object. Weight limit method allows you to choose where you want to see your bevel. So if you want to choose multiple edges, you can hold Alt key and then right click on the edge. And if you want to add to this selection, you can hold Shift Alt key and then right click to add additional edges to your selection. Now you can follow me and select the same edges that I do. After that, click N to open this menu and let's set mean bevel weight to 1. Let's set bevel amount to 0.008. You can also press W and shade smooth and / to exit local view. Now let's work on these small parts here. We need to apply our mirror modifier first, so we can either click on this arrow and choose apply, or we can hover over it and click Ctrl A on your keyboard. And let's step into edit mode, select everything, P, and separate it by loose parts. So you can see each object is now a separate object, so let's delete them for now. So right now we want to bring this origin point to the middle of the geometry, so we can add a mirror modifier later. So let's press W, set origin to geometry, and you can see the origin is in the middle right now. Press numpad 7, Z, go to wireframe mode, and let's select these vertices. Then let's press X and delete the vertices. Now we can add another mirror modifier, and let's drag it up, and let's set axis as Y. You can see now it is duplicated from each side. Let's press 1 on your numpad, and let's select these faces. After you select these faces, press I to insert them to somewhere right here. After that, press X, F to delete faces. What we can do now is we can go to viewport overlays over here, and let's check statistics here. By the way, we can take these blue edges here, let's take both of them, and let's press N on your keyboard, and let's set mean bevel weight to 0. So now let's alt right click on the edge, and let's check how many vertices we have. So I have 8 vertices here, and what we are going to do is we're going to Shift S and press cursor to select it. After this, we can add a mesh circle, so Shift A, mesh circle, and make it 8 vertices, or whatever number you have there. Let's scale it down like this. RX to rotate it on 90 degrees. Let's rotate it slightly. And let's put one part somewhere here. Now I'll take other vertices and move them to about right here. Make sure you have vertex snap active. Now let's select one vertex of our mesh, G, hold Ctrl and snap it to the vertex of the circle. And you should do it with all the vertices just like I do here. So one more time, select the vertex, press G on your keyboard, hold Ctrl and snap it to the vertex of the circle. Okay, that looks nice. Now let's alt click on the circle and let's bring it down to our other hole. And let's rotate it so it would fit in. So I will place it around here, and I'll do just the same thing as we did with the previous circle. And when we are done, we can just move the circle away and delete it. And now we can alt select the edges, press E on our keyboard and extrude it on the Y-axis. After that, let's change our transform pivot point to individual origins. So press E to extrude, S to scale, and scale it down to about right here. Then just press F to fill the faces. Now let's select these edges. Ctrl B to bevel them, and I will add approximately 3 segments here. I think it looks nice, so what we can do, we can disable the subdivision modifier by clicking the screen icon here. We can select the inner edges and we can bevel them as well. After that, do not forget to enable the subdivision modifier by clicking the screen icon one more time. So if we rotate our object right now, you can see that the mirror modifier did its job and we have holes on both sides of our corner. Go to bevel modifier into the shading tab and we can enable harden normals. So let's hover our cursor over the mirror modifier and let's press Ctrl A to apply it. We can select the edges with Alt right click and then let's press Ctrl E and choose Bridge Edge Loops. So the corner is ready and we can now bring back our origin point. So let's choose our main object, go into edit mode, select the middle vertex and then press Shift S and choose cursor to select it. Then tap out, choose our corner, W, set origin to 3D cursor. Now let's add mirror modifier and duplicate it to each side. Drag the mirror modifier up so it would be the first one in the modifiers list and then check the Z axis. So you can see our corners right now are perfectly mirrored. And now let's just do the smaller hole here, so let's do it right now. So select our corner and we can disable the subdivision surface modifier for now. In face selection mode, select the edges with Alt right click, and we can hit I to insert these faces. And then we can press Alt E and extrude along normals. And I think it looks nice. So now let's work on our main object. So let's assign a bevel modifier here as well as subdivision surface modifier, and both of them should have 3 segments. Okay, so press / to go into the local view. Let's select these vertices and connect them with J. And let's do the same for the other side. And you can see our bevel now works. Now select the edges that I select. Press N on your keyboard and set mean bevel weight to 1. Another thing I'll show you is we have these faces here, and we do not need them because mirror modifier will overlap them, so let's delete them. For that, press numpad 1 on your keyboard, Z, go to wireframe mode, press 1 for vertices selection mode, and select these vertices like that, X, F to delete the vertices. Let's do the same with the bottom part. Press X, F to delete the faces. Okay, and it looks nice. Now in bevel settings, let's set limit method to weight, and let's change the bevel amount to something like 0.008. So press W and then shade smooth. We can go to Geometry tab in Bevel Settings and switch Mitre Auto from Sharp to Arc, and it will slightly improve the geometry. And I think it looks nice, so now we can press / to exit the local view, and we can close Bevel and Subdivision modifiers for now. Now let's go into Edit mode and let's select these faces here. And yeah, I think we will need to select faces on the other side as well. So you can see if I press G to move them, they are not staying together. And to fix this one, we can press Clipping in the mirror modifier settings. And now you can see they are not separated anymore. So what we can do is we can press I to insert, and let's set a number of 0.05. After that, open Settings at the bottom left and uncheck Boundaries. Now let's use our loop tools, W, loop tools, circle. So now it is probably overlapping for you as well, so we need to scale it down. If I just press S, you can see it doesn't really work because the mesh goes into the wrong direction, so we can block the scale on the Y-axis. Let's press S, Shift Y to block the Y-axis, scale it down a bit, and then press X, F to delete the faces. We can take these two edges and we can just Ctrl E and bridge edge loops to connect them. And let's add mean bevel weight to them as well. Okay, so let's expand the circle now. We should go to the front view with numpad 1 and press Z, go to wireframe mode. And let's select these vertices first. Make sure you select them on the other side as well. Let's press S, Shift Y to block the Y-axis, and let's just scale them down. And you can see the middle vertex overlapping, so what we can do is we can place it somewhere here. So we will need to deselect this one. So let's press Z, go to wireframe mode, and press B on your keyboard, and then press middle mouse button to deselect the vertices. Now let's press S to scale, Shift Y to block the Y-axis, and let's scale these vertices a bit more. And I think to somewhere like this will be fine. Now let's go back to wireframe mode again and let's select these vertices to manage our circle. So S, Shift Y, and let's scale them as well. And let's scale them to about right here. We can take the middle vertices, go to the Transform Orientations tab and change this from global to normal. And right now, if we click G, Z, you can see it moves it on a normal Z axis. That's what we need. And let's move it to about right here, and now we have a nice looking circle. So by now you should have something that looks like this. And what we're going to do now is let's focus on this part here. So you can see it kind of expands and goes inside there, so we can do it easily. And let me show you how we can do it. So hold Ctrl and press 1 on your numpad to go into the back view. So let's press Shift S and let's set cursor to world origin right now. Then click Shift A, add mesh, cube. Enter edit mode, A to select everything, scale it down. and move it on the x-axis to somewhere right here. Now let's enable the mirror modifier and let's enable x and z axis here as well. Press 3 to go into face selection mode and let's delete this face. X, F to delete it. Select these edges with Alt right click, enable clipping, press G and then Z to move it down. Now let's move it on the y-axis a bit and make sure you have vertex snap enabled. Then press G, Y, hold Ctrl and snap it to our main base of our CPU cooler. Let's scale it down a bit and snap it one more time. You can scale it until you see the result that looks approximately like mine. Now let's press G, X to move it on the x-axis and snap it to the corner of our base model. And we can take this side face and move it a bit on the x-axis. And now let's select the top face, hold Ctrl 1 on your numpad and press GZ, hold Ctrl to snap it to our corner. Something like this should work. So right now we will have to add a loop cut, so let's Ctrl R and let's bring it up to about like this, so the edges would be even and they would form a cube. Now let's press Z, go to wireframe mode, select these vertices and then extrude them. You can also see we have this face, so let's X, F and delete the face. Let's select this edge loop with Alt right click and let's move it further. Okay, so now press / to go into the local view and let's select these two vertices and join them with J. And on another side let's do the same, so select the vertices and press J. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bevel this corner so it would look approximately like you see on the image. So let's right click on this edge and then hold Shift and Alt right click on the other edge and let's press X and choose dissolve edges. Now we can hold Alt and right click on this edge and let's hold Ctrl and press 1 on our numpad and we will bevel this edge right now. So bevel it approximately to the line of separation between corners and our main base. Okay, so now let's make it a little bit less thick. Go to wireframe mode, select two vertices, move them to the right, GX. And let's select another vertices and move them up a bit with G and then press Z. Okay, so it looks nice, and what we can do now is we can take one edge and lower it down so it would look exactly like you see on the image here. So let's select this edge and then press G and Z to move it down like this, and I think it looks fairly nice. So we can hit Ctrl Z to revert the changes and we can take another edge and also lower it down. So you can keep any result and I personally will go with the first option. Now let's Ctrl A and apply rotation and scale just in case, and we're going to add a bevel modifier. That's 3 segments here. And bevel amount should be something like 0.008. I think it looks nice, so let's press W, shade smooth. You can also open shading tab in bevel settings and check harden normals. You can see the shading looks a bit better. Another thing you can do is you go to geometry and again change mitre outer from sharp to arc. And you can see our geometry looks a little bit better. Okay, so right now we are going to add this plate. And it is located between two parts of our base 3D model. So we will later duplicate it so it would look nice, but for now let's focus on this plate. So we can tap into edit mode and let's select these two edges here. After that let's hold Shift and click D, right click to keep it in place. Now press P on your keyboard and separate it by selection. Let's tab out and let's select our new object that we have just separated. And then tap into edit mode again, select everything with A, press E to extrude and extrude it to somewhere right here. Tab out of edit mode and let's add a solidify modifier. So add modifier, generate, solidify. And let's drag it up so it would be above the bevel modifier. Okay, so we can check even thickness now. And after that, let's apply rotation and scale just in case, and we can hold Shift and left click mouse button and drag it left or right, and I think this thickness should work. Now in the bevel modifier, let's set amount to 0.04. And I think it looks good. Now we can select these corner vertices and press G and then Z to move them up. So just move them up until you like what you see. We can actually increase thickness a bit, so let's do that. And now let's select all the objects except this plate that is going to be in the middle. Hold Shift, press D to duplicate, right click to keep it in place. RZ 180 and then just move it on the Y-axis like this. And we can now snap them to our plate, so again, G, Y, hold Control and snap it to the plate. And alright, it looks very nice, so we're going to move further now. And also, let's select the middle plate, hit W, set origin, origin to geometry, and now we have origin exactly in the middle of our 3D object. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create this middle part and we will also make blades. So let's get started. So select middle plate and press Shift S and choose cursor to select it. Okay, so now press Shift A, add mesh cylinder and enter edit mode to scale it down, just like this. After that press R, X and type in 90. Let's check our reference image and I think this one could be a little bit bigger for me, so I'll scale it up just like this. And press numpad 7 to go into the top view, and let's scale this one on the y-axis. So press S and then Y and scale to about right there. Yeah, I think it looks good. Okay, so now go into the face selection mode. Let's select this face, press I to insert. Insert it right about here and then E to extrude, just like this. And we can insert it one more time. Now let's press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision surface modifier. We need to add additional edge loop, so we can go to the back face, insert it just like this, and then Ctrl R and add additional loop cut. We can shade it smooth and I think it looks nice. We can add bevel modifier right now and let's put it above the subdivision surface. So we need to add 3 segments and I think the amount of 0.008 will work. Okay, so it looks nice and I think we can add blades now, so let's do that. Press 1 on your numpad, Shift A, add mesh, plane, go into edit mode, A to select everything and let's scale it like that and then RX to rotate it on 90 degrees. Okay, so let's move it to about right here and now let's take the top edge and let's GZ to move it up. Now we can press / to go into the local view and then with Ctrl R let's add 2 vertical loop cuts and 3 horizontal ones. And let's just quickly tab out of the edit mode, Ctrl 2 to add subdivision surface modifier and let's get back to the edit mode. So now you will need to enable the proportional editing, you can do it by clicking this button. So I will select 3 of these vertices and with the proportional editing you can see that I can kind of stretch our mesh. And if you scroll your mouse wheel up or down you will choose how much of a stretch you want. So right now I will press G and Z to move it up just a bit and then I'll select 2 more vertices and I'll move them up as well, GZ, and let's take the last vertex and move it up as well. Now let's select the vertices in the middle. Let's scroll your mouse wheel up and then move your mouse to the left until you create something like this. So right now we can bevel corner vertices. Select one vertex, press Ctrl B and then V, and then you can scroll your mouse wheel up or down to choose how many segments you want. And now we should bevel our second corner vertex, so press Ctrl B and then V and then choose how many vertices you like. Okay, so it looks fine for now, and now let's go to the wireframe mode and let's select these top vertices. After that press S, X and let's scale it on the X axis a bit, so it would look a bit larger than the bottom part. Okay, so that looks good. Now let's select these vertices and press 3 on your numpad. After that press G, Y and bend it slightly. Okay, so now select the bottom vertices, press numpad 7, press R to rotate it, and you need to rotate it slightly. I think this one looks good, so you can shade it smooth. And let's disable the proportional editing. And one thing you should know is that you are probably not going to make it look good right away, so you need to practice a few times. So press / right now and in edit mode move the blade so it would be in the middle of our cylinder. And you can also scale it down if necessary. Okay, so right now I'm just checking the size of it and I'll scale it up a bit. So at this point you need to make sure that it looks good for you. So just tweak it until you like it. Okay, so let's / now, and let's add a solidify modifier. Let's drag it up above the subdivision surface modifier. And also let's add bevel modifier above the subdivision surface modifier as well. Now let's add 3 segments, and while holding shift you can left click and hold it and drag it left or right until you see something you like. For me the amount is going to be 0.002. For the solidify we can check even thickness and make it 0.008. We can tweak it later if needed. And now let's go back to bevel settings, open shading tab and check harden normals. Okay, so forward slash to exit local view. So press 1 on your numpad, after that select everything in edit mode, Ctrl E, choose spin, and make sure you check use duplicates. Make sure to have 3D cursor in the middle of your cylinder. And now you can increase the number of steps, and for me it is going to be 9. And then I'll move it on the y-axis just a tiny bit. And yeah, I think it looks really nice. So right now we will be working on our radiator, so let's do that. Okay, so now let's select our back frame. And let's select the middle vertex. Shift S, cursor to select. After that let's add mesh plane. We're going to work on the radiator, and it has some small details we will be working on right now. So with our plane selected, let's press 7 on our numpad. Then go to the edit mode, enter wireframe mode, SY to scale on the y-axis, and then move it GY. After that, GY, let's snap it to the back of our frame, and make sure you have the bounding box pivot point enabled right now. Hold Ctrl, snap it, and let's see. So we can bring it down, GZ, and let's move it to the middle of this hole here. So let's make some space and move it on the y-axis right now. Right now let's use Ctrl R and add loop cuts here. Tab out, W, set origin to geometry. Now tab into edit mode one more time and let's select the vertices that I select here. And then let's hit X, delete vertices. We are going to use a mirror modifier, so let's add a mirror modifier and let's choose the Y-axis as well. So mirror modifier works, and now let's work on these small details here. So let's press numpad 7 right now and forward slash to go into the local view. So now with Ctrl R let's add 2 horizontal loop cuts and 1 vertical one, and let's move the vertical one to the side, like that. And now with Ctrl B let's bevel it slightly, just like that. Press 3 on your keyboard and let's select this face, and then X, F to delete it. Now let's select these 2 vertices and move them on the y-axis like this, and after that let's scale them on the x-axis like this. Okay, so the first thing is done. Now let's press K to select the knife tool. After that click somewhere on the edge, choose this vertex and press enter. Looks nice, and now we have to apply modifiers. So let's add solidify first, and we can check even thickness, and let's give it something like 0.009, but we will later tweak it. And also you can add bevel modifier with 3 segments. But in order for it to work, we will need to add 1 vertex over here, so Ctrl R, add vertex here. Select this vertex and the other one and press J to join the geometry, and now you can see our bevel is working. And you can tweak bevel settings to see something that you like. W, shade smooth, and enable harden normals in the shading tab. Forward slash on your keyboard, and I think that we can tweak solidify modifier a bit. And another modifier that we're going to add right now is an array modifier. So let's select it. And we can close other modifiers tabs for now. So let's set X to 0 and then set Z to something like 1. Okay, so we can see that there is some space between these plates, so I think that we can tweak the Z-axis a bit more. So right now I will speed up the video, and you can see that I'm tweaking all the modifiers right now, so everything would look nice. Okay, and let's go to the top view, so click 7 on your numpad. Let's select these vertices and let's move them on an x-axis. So I want the radiator to be larger than our frame right now. Let's bring our solidify modifier to the top and let's apply it. You should always apply modifiers top to bottom. Let's disable the array modifier for now and let's alt right click this edge and bevel it slightly. We can also move our plate on the y-axis. Let's add another plane. Tap into edit mode, go to wireframe view and scale it down like this. Let's now move it on the y-axis a bit and scale it on the y-axis as well. So I want these vertices to be larger than our radiator plates. Let's take these vertices as well, G, X, and let's move it left. Okay, so that looks nice for now. Now let's add a loop cut in the middle. So Ctrl R, left click and then right click. Tab out of edit mode, W, set origin to geometry. And let's delete the edge right here. After that, go to mirror modifier. And we can also add a solidify modifier as well. So on the reference image you can see that this plate is kind of thick, so we will do it like that, and later we will move on to the small details on the top. So let's move the solidify modifier up, and let's increase thickness here. Now use Ctrl R, add additional loop cut here, and let's select this edge and move it down like this. You can see on the reference image it is slightly bended. Okay, so it looks nice, and I think we can move it up a bit so it would not overlap with our radiator plates. And right now I will slightly tweak it, so I will select the vertices, move them on an x-axis, and then I'll select the edge and move it up slightly. Okay, looks good, and now let's add bevel modifier. So again, 3 segments, 0.009 works for me, W, shade smooth, and let's go to the shading tab and check harden normals. We will need to add a subdivision surface modifier, so Ctrl 2. And let's select this edge and bevel it with 2 segments. Okay, so let's apply the solidify modifier with Ctrl A. Ctrl R, let's add a loop cut in the middle. Let's select these vertices and delete them. And let's enable the y-axis in the mirror modifier. Right now let's add 3 loop cuts here, and also let's add loop cuts here, and add them until they form a square faces on your geometry. Okay, so that looks decent. Right now we will need to select 4 faces, so select them as I do. Let's press I to inset, and then W, loop tools, and let's choose circle. After that let's press E to extrude and move it down just like that. And in bevel settings we are going to change the limit method to weight. So let's select the edges that we want to be beveled with our bevel modifier. Let's press N and set mean bevel weight to 1. Okay, that looks nice, and actually I'll also set a mean bevel weight to these edges as well. Now let's select the edges of the circle and press Ctrl B to bevel them manually. Press 3 on your keyboard and let's select these faces. Let's insert them, and in the settings let's uncheck boundary. And let's also select these edges and set mean bevel weight to 0 for them. Okay, so select these faces again, W, loop tools, circle. Right now I will need to scale these two on their individual origins, but before that let's enable clipping for our mirror modifier. And again, make sure that you have individual origins enabled. And now let's extrude these faces down, and let's alt right click on the edges and bevel them manually with Ctrl B. Okay, so I think it looks nice, and what we can do is we can disable the bevel modifier as well as subdivision surface modifier. And we can select these faces and Shift D, right click, P and then separate by selection. Then tab out of the edit mode and select our newly separated objects, E to extrude up. Right now let's add some loop cuts with Ctrl R to support the mesh, so we will need to add loop cuts for every cylinder. We can select the top faces and then inset them slightly. And we can delete the bevel modifier for the cylinders, click on our plate and enable modifiers back. Another thing we can do is let's select these two cylinders, S, Shift Z to block the Z axis, and let's scale them down a bit like that. After that, let's tab out of the edit mode, apply mirror modifier, and let's work on the middle cylinder as well. So select the cylinder, scale it on the Y axis slightly, and then S, Shift Z to block the Z axis and scale it up. And let's do the same for the second cylinder. Okay, so everything looks fine for now and I really like our results. Do not forget to save everything with Ctrl S. We can also press numpad 3 on our keyboard, go into edit mode and select the top vertices. Now scale them down using individual origins. And what we have to do now is we have to apply the mirror modifier for our top plate. So let's hover over the modifier, Ctrl A to apply it. Tab into edit mode, select one face, then hold Ctrl and right click on the face on the other end. And let's press Shift S, cursor to select it. Now we have the cursor in the middle and we can duplicate objects around it. So let's select everything, Shift D, right click to keep it in place. Now let's change the transform pivot point to 3D cursor, R, Z, 180. Left click to apply. And now you can see we have perfectly duplicated our objects around the 3D cursor. Okay, so the main part is done and now we are going to focus on the heat tubes here. We're also going to work on this part and we will later create these bolts here. Okay, so let's select the two parts of our radiator and you can see the origin points are in the middle, so we can place a 3D cursor between them, Shift S, cursor to select it. So press 1 on your numpad right now, Shift A, Mesh, Cube. Okay, and in edit mode, let's scale it down and then move it down on the Z axis. Let's change transform pivot point back to bounding box center and then press S and Z to scale it on the Z axis. Okay, so now we need a little bit of tweaking, so SY to scale it on the Y axis. So I want to make this cube approximately the same size as you can see on the image. Okay, so we can SX and scale it on the X axis. And let's bring it down on the Z-axis one more time. Okay, so let me check. I think we're going to work on these parts right now, so you can see these side parts. And we will also make this bottom part right now. Okay, so with Ctrl R, you should add 2 loop cuts right now. And then let's add one more loop cut on the sides. And move the loop cut down just like that. Now let's Ctrl A and apply rotations and scale. And let's Alt right click and select these edges. After that, press Alt E and extrude along normals. And in the settings, you can check offset even. So if I disable the offset even, you can see that these edges are kind of bended. So let's enable it back. Okay, so we got the first part. We can select these 3 faces right now and bring them down just like that. And then let's select 2 side faces and extrude them up. Okay, so that's just what we needed, and we can move them up a tiny bit, and we can also select these vertices in the wireframe view, and we can also move them up a bit. Okay, so let's take a look at our reference images. And I think we can make these holes for heat tubes as well. They are not really visible on this one, but we can make them. So let's add a loop cut just like that with Ctrl R, and let's add a loop cut here in the middle as well. Let's go to the wireframe mode and select these vertices and delete them. And let's also select these vertices on the back and delete them as well. We're going to use a mirror modifier, so let's apply mirror on the X and Y axis. And now we need to add many loop cuts vertically and horizontally. And again, you want them to shape a square face. Okay, that looks nice. Let's deselect everything with Ctrl A. And let's select the faces just like I do it here. And press I to insert them, then W, Loop Tools, Circle. Change Transform Pivot Point to Individual Origins and scale them down just like that. And now we can extrude with E and move them to about right there. Now let's add a bevel modifier with 3 segments. And let's shade it auto smooth. In the shading tab, enable harden normals. Okay, so again you can see that our circles are beveled and we do not want that, so we're going to change limit method to weight. Select the same edges that I select with Alt right click and then Shift Alt right click to add more edges to your selection. Okay, so that's what we need, so now press N and set mean bevel weight to 1. And I will set bevel amount to something like 0.006. And what we can do in the geometry tab, we can set miter outward from sharp to arc. And you can see this has improved our geometry. So now we're going to bevel these circles, but before that, let's close bevel modifier here. And let's add subdivision surface, so Ctrl 2 to do that. Okay, I think it looks nice, and now let's select these edges here with Alt right click, and let's Ctrl B and bevel them, so they would look nice. We can disable the subdivision surface modifier for now, and let's select these edges inside as well. So I'll do that and I'll bevel them. And let's enable the subdivision surface modifier back. Okay, so I think we have too many heat tubes right now, and we can merge these two middle ones into one. So for now, let's disable the X-axis. And with Ctrl A, let's apply the mirror modifier. Okay, so tab into edit mode, Alt right click on these faces, XF to delete them, Alt right click on these faces, also delete them. Let's disable the subdivision surface modifier for now, and let's select these faces here. And then hold Ctrl and press numpad plus on your keyboard. That way we can expand our selection, and let's delete it with XF. Let's Alt select this edge, and after that W, Loop Tools, Circle. We can just scale it down like that. Now let's press E on our keyboard and extrude it on the X-axis. Now let's press E, S and scale it down like this, and then press F to fill out the faces. Let's select these edges and Ctrl B to bevel them. Enable the subdivision surface modifier, and you can see we have nice circles here. And one hole here is bigger than others, and that's okay, so it will give us opportunity to practice on our heat tubes. We can add our mirror modifier, and let's drag it up so it would be the first in the selection. Okay, I think it looks really nice. Now let's set our cursor to selection, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then Shift A, add mesh cylinder. In edit mode, let's scale it down just like that, and then let's GY to move it on the Y axis, and let's add mirror modifier here as well. Move it on the X axis and enable the Y axis for the mirror modifier. So in edit mode, let's scale down our cylinder like that, and let's bring it down to one of the holes here, and it should be approximately in the middle of it. Put it like that, and then just G, Z to move it up. Hold Z and enter wireframe mode, select the bottom vertices, and move them down a bit, just like that. Place your 3D cursor next to the vertices, and we are going to use a spin tool right now. So select the spin tool and choose the correct axis, and in my case it is going to be Y-axis. So we can click this plus icon and hold it and spin it just a tiny bit. After that, just press E to extrude and extrude it to about right here. And just place the 3D cursor again next to these vertices. So let's use the spin tool again, spin it just like that, and extrude it forward. Okay, so that looks nice. Let's press Z and go to wireframe mode right now. Select all the vertices and G, Z, move them up so they would align with the hole we just created. And now we can fix the edges here, so let's Alt select the edge, X, dissolve edges, and I'll dissolve this edge as well. I think it looks good. So we can W, shade smooth, Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. And now / on your keyboard to go into the local view. Select this face, I to inset, and then with Ctrl R let's add a loop cut here and move it to the side. Okay, let's do the same with our top face. Select it, I to inset, and let's add a loop cut here and move it up. Okay, so let's / to exit local view, tab into edit mode, select everything, Shift D, move it on the Y axis, and let's just duplicate this heat tube to our other hole. And we can change it slightly, so Z, go to wireframe mode, select these vertices and move them down just a bit. That way we can diversify the look of our heat tubes. Okay, now let's make this heat tube that will be a little bit larger than the others. Again, tab into edit mode right now, select the vertex on this heat tube and press L on your keyboard to select everything. After that, Shift D and move it on the Y axis to somewhere right here. And now let's press P and separate it by selection. Okay, so now tab out of the edit mode and select the recently separated tube, toggle off the Y axis in the mirror modifier, go to the edit mode, A to select everything, GY to move it to the middle of this circle here. And let's hold Alt and press S to make it fit the hole. I think it looks nice, and what we can do is we can go to wireframe mode again, select these vertices and move them up a tiny bit. Okay, so our heat tubes are now ready. Okay, so now let's finish this bottom part here, but before that we need to apply the mirror modifier for it. Ctrl A to apply the mirror modifier. Then tab into edit mode and select these edges with Alt right click. Then N and set mean bevel weight to 1. So while having these edges selected, let's press Ctrl B on our keyboard and let's add a small bevel just like that. Now press Alt E and extrude along normals. We can disable the modifiers for now, and let's select these corner edges with Alt right click. And then set mean bevel weight to 1 and enable the modifiers back. Okay, so that looks nice. And now let's tab into edit mode and let's select these faces here. After that, let's duplicate them with Shift D, right click to keep them in place, press P and then separate by selection. Delete all the modifiers here, let's tap into edit mode one more time, GZ to move it up, and let's scale it on the Y axis, so S, Y, and scale it like that. Now press X and choose limited dissolve to clear all the faces. Okay, so you can see that we have 4 vertices now. Let's add a loop cut in the middle, Shift R, left click, right click, Ctrl B to bevel it, and let's set mean bevel weight to 0. Now S, Shift Y to block the Y axis and scale it down just a bit. Select the side edges and move them down with G, Z. Left click to keep it in place. Now let's add a solidify modifier and check even thickness. W shade flat for now. So we can play with thickness amount, and I like this for now. And let's add a bevel modifier with 3 segments. And I think 0.004 looks nice. Now let's W shade smooth, and in shading tab let's enable harden normals. In edit mode I will scale it on the x-axis so it would fit our object. Now I will select these vertices, E and then Z to move them down. I'll move everything up and I'll play with thickness a bit more. And with bevel as well. I think 0.002 now works well. Okay, so I like this. And let's take a look at our reference image. You can see these small details here, so we will be working on bolts right now. So tap into edit mode, select this edge here, Shift S cursor to select it, Shift A, add mesh cylinder, scale it down just like that, and move it on the Y-axis. And I'll put it under this plate, apply the rotation and scale with Ctrl A, select the top face and move it up with G and Z. And on the reference image it goes to about right here, and then we will be working on the cap. So again, let's place it somewhere here and let's W shade auto smooth. Okay, tap into edit mode, select the top face, Shift S cursor to select it. After that add mesh circle and let's give it 56 vertices right now. Scale it down just like that. Enter edit mode, select everything and press F to fill. Then extrude it up just like that, and I think it looks good. Now let's Ctrl R, add a loop cut in the middle and then Ctrl B to bevel it. Let's select these edges around and press I to insert them. And you want to insert them individually, so press I a couple of times until you can do that just like I do. Hold Alt, press E, extrude along normals. In transform pivot point, make sure you have individual origins selected, and press S, Z and scale them down like that. Again, apply the scale with Ctrl A, add bevel modifier, and let's add 3 segments here. So I'll set a bevel amount as 0.0005. W, shade auto smooth. In shading tab, let's enable harden normals. Okay, so now let's select everything and move it up. Select our cap and Shift S, cursor to select it. Shift A, add mesh circle, and let's make a circle with 32 vertices. Scale it down just like that. RX, type in 90. Ctrl A, apply rotation and scale. Go to modifiers and let's add a screw modifier. Let's toggle Y-axis and let's increase screw amount a bit. Now I'll go to options and check origins, so we will be able to move our origin point just like that. Okay, so let's toggle Z-axis and now I think it will work properly. G, X and move our origin point just like that. Now options, disable the origin point. You can scale this down and move it to the middle of our bolt, just like this. Another thing you can do is Shift S, selection to cursor, and let's just GZ and move it down just like that. Let's scale it down a bit more. And again, let's check origin and move it slightly. So G, Y and move it like this. We can set steps viewport and render to 32, disable the origin, selection to cursor, GZ to move it down, and now it looks nice. We can scale a bit more, move it down, apply the scale, change screw amount in modifier settings. And we can increase the angle and then just tweak screw modifier settings a bit more. and I think it looks nice. Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Ctrl A on screw modifier to apply it. Let's select this edge, F to fill, Y to separate, and now you can see we have a nice shading. Let's do the same with the bottom part. Select the edge loop, F to fill, Y to separate. Okay, that looks really good. And now let's work on the top of our cap. So let's select it, I to insert, B and S to separate selection. Tab out of edit mode, select our cap, go to edit mode, select everything and E to extrude down, just like this. And let's check our face orientation mode. Let's select red objects, tab into edit mode, A to select everything, Shift N to flip normals. Okay, so that looks fine and we can disable the face orientations for now. Now let's go back into the edit mode, S, Shift Z to block the Z axis, and let's scale it down just like that. Now let's select the top face, Shift S, cursor to select it, / to go into the local view, press numpad 7 to go into the top view, Shift A, mesh, plane. Let's scale it down just like that. Ctrl A, apply the scale. Let's add 2 loop cuts horizontally and vertically, and let's select these vertices and delete them. Now S, X and scale it down, select these vertices as well, S, Y and scale them down, A to select everything and scale everything up. Now let's select the middle part and move it down just like that. Okay, so in edit mode, select everything, Ctrl A and extrude along normals. Shift N to flip vertices just in case, and let's move it up just like this. Select our cap and add boolean modifier. And choose our plane. Now we can select our plane and press H to hide it. And you can see it looks nice, but we can tweak it a bit more. So Ctrl Z and bring it down just like this. And you can see if we hide it, it overlaps with our main cap. Tab into edit mode, select the bottom face and move it down with GZ. Now we can select it and hide it, and you can see it is looking very nice right now. So let's select everything right now. Shift D, Y, and move it on the Y axis like that. We can also rotate it on the Z axis. And we should add this part in the middle, so let's do that as well. Let's select our cap, Shift D, Y, and put it around here. We can actually go to the outliner with our plane selected and press period key to see it in the outliner. And now what we can do is we can click this eye icon to disable it as well as the camera icon. And that way this plane will not be seen during render. Okay, so let's save our file with Ctrl S. Right now everything is almost ready, but we should work on these small details here that hold our radiator and cooler base together. So let's do that right now. Let's select our plate in the middle. Shift S, cursor to select it. Then Shift A, add curve and pass. Let's scale it down just like this. And in edit mode, let's move it away to about here. Let's select these vertices and move them on the X-axis and then on the Y-axis. Okay, so that looks nice for now. And we can select them all and move them up to about the middle of our circle here. Let's move them to the right a bit and let's delete this vertex. Okay, so let's select this vertex, move it on the Y-axis. And select this one and move it on the X-axis. Select the other vertex, extrude it. Go into the top view, extrude it even more. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to extrude everything right now. So you can follow me and do the same thing. On the reference image you can see the location of this thing, so now I will try to replicate that. Okay, so right now we will have to add a mirror modifier. Let's do that. And we should also toggle the Z-axis. And now let's follow our reference and continue working on it. So I will speed up the video again and you should follow me. Okay, so right now we should enable clipping in our mirror modifier settings. And let's extrude this vertex down until it connects with the other one. Now you should go to Data Settings, open Geometry tab, and in the bevel you should add some depths here. So for me 0.43 looks nice. Let's press W right now, choose Convert to Mesh. And now you can see our modifiers are applied. Now if you tap into Edit mode, you can select this edge loop, press F to fill it, Y to separate it. And let's do the same with all the edge loops here. Let's now select our bottom object, Shift S, cursor to select it. And let's select our new mesh, Shift D, right click. Let's change transform pivot point around the 3D cursor, RZ180. And now I can say that the 3D model of our CPU cooler is fully ready. So we are done with modeling for now, and I think in future videos we can texture it. Right now we can press Z, go to rendered mode, add a sunlight, and increase its strength to 10. So you can see that our model looks really nice. Feel free to subscribe and support my channel since there are more videos to come. Thanks for watching and see you soon.